Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a... You don't need to move it, because I'm going to sit back. This is a memorial service in remembering Dennis Mixer, Ministry of the Sheep International, his work with YWAM in Mexico, his missionary work in Honduras, his 4,000-mile walk for missions, his events that happened in Colorado and
his
Florida.
5,300-mile bike ride for missions he did.
Mm-hmm.
And just the life and legacy that he has left imprinted on our lives, of the lives of the people that he helped and he touched over the years. And sadly, while doing ministry work in Mazatlan, Sonora, Mexico. That's where he was living, and he was doing ministry, mission work, reaching out to the homeless, feeding the homeless, helping, taking drug addicts to help them get into rehab, and he was doing what was called Church in the Park in the town where he was at. And sadly, on June 14th, 2020, after an extended illness and being in the hospital, he sadly passed away. He'd gotten out of the hospital, and then 2 days later he was rushed back to the hospital and he passed away. And we don't know for sure. They tested him for COVID-19. They said it tested negative. But when the death certificate was made out, they said it was COVID. So we really don't know for sure, but we know, what we do know is we know where Dennis is. We know he's in heaven, and he's having a great time with the Lord. And we just really miss him. So without further ado, we're going to, actually 11 years today, ironic, it was so strange. 11 years exactly today, we uploaded this interview that we did with Dennis when he was doing his 4,000 mile walk for missions across the United States. He came through Ohio and he spent a few days with us. And this was the interview we did with him, just to let him tell his story. And this is Dennis's story. And we hope that his life and his legacy that he left behind will touch you as much as it touched our lives. God bless you.
Hi, my name's Dennis Mixer. I'm the founder of Ministry of the Sheep International, and we want to take some time this morning to tell you about the ministry. First, I want to tell you a little bit about me. I was raised in a Christian church, Christian family, and actually when I was in my late teens, friends would come to me for counseling. I wasn't living a strong Christian life, went into the military and really fell from God. And it got to the point where I was plain running from God, saying, God, I don't want anything to do with you. And he one day knocked me upside the head, the 2x4, and I came back to him. I was in law enforcement for 20 years total. I was in military police for 3 years, and then civilian law enforcement for 17 years. I did the DARE program, the McGruff program. I was a volunteer on an ambulance, and it's just all of a sudden I was about 46 years old, and it didn't seem as meaningful as it used to. And I started praying about it, and God started telling me it's because I have more for you to do. And what I was hearing God say was that I would be working with people without a home and myself without a home. So I continued praying about this and felt I was being led to do like a street ministry or something like that. I ended up quitting my job and moving back to Minnesota where I'd grown up. And I got there, I told my family my plans of, basically doing street ministry. And a sister told me I needed to see this evangelist that was going to be at our brother's church the following Sunday. So I thought, well, I can stick around for 1 week. And walked into the church the following Sunday, and the evangelist, his name is Thomas Stammen, and he is the president of Impact Ministries International. And they had picture boards set up at the entrance of the church. And I saw they had a ministry in India with an orphanage. They had a farm and were working with another orphanage in Uganda. They had a farm and a feeding center in Guatemala. And then I saw a farm and orphanage in Honduras, and God said, that's where you're going. And of course, Honduras is a little bit different than downtown Minneapolis. And I told God, I said, I need some verification on this. That's a big step. So this evangelist is preaching, and he would stop every once in a while and he'd pray for people. And I was the third person he prayed for. And with the others, he is very motivational. He got to me and he kind of bowed his head like this, and he looks up, he says, you're a hard worker. And his eyes got real big. He said, you'd be good in Honduras. So there's my verification that God wanted me to go to Honduras. And make a long story short, I was planning on saving money to go down there for 6 months on my own, then coming back and trying to get funding. Is a matter of, I've seen too many people that go into churches, they say, this is what I want to do and I need you to give me your money. And then you never hear anymore. So I was wanting to support myself for 6 months, come back and say, this is what I do, these are the kids that I work with, I want to continue doing this. And I got it, started looking for a job, and I could not find a good paying job. I ended up working at a convenience store for a little over minimum wage. Now, obviously wasn't saving any money, and I figured, I'm not making a lot of money, so I was going to take a couple weeks to travel with this evangelist, since I was going to be working at an orphanage that he was in charge of. I wanted, him to know me better, and so I went on the road with this evangelist, and within 2 hours of being on the road, he asked me why I wasn't going to Honduras until July. And this was February. And I told him I wanted to save money to go down there on my own and then come back and try and get supporters. He says, we need you down there now. He says, we're paying 3 security guards at the orphanage. You've got experience in law enforcement. We will pay for your flight down there for 6 months, a flight back at the end of the 6 months, and we'll give you a little bit of money. You can live at the orphanage and eat at the orphanage, and you'll be working with the kids and working on the new orphanage, and the only difference is you'll have a gun on your side. So a month later, I'm in Honduras, full expense paid trip to Honduras, and fell in love with my kids. I've got 26 kids down there that in my heart they're my kids. And at the end of the 6 months, came home with the intent of raising funds to go back down there. And I was asked to go to Uganda instead. And I said, something I had to pray about. And I talked to God about it, and said, God, what about my kids? And he says, no, Dennis, those are my kids. I just let you take care of them for a while. He says, I've got more kids than you're ever going to be able to handle. And he led me to form Ministry of the Sheep International. Ministry of the Sheep International is based on Matthew 25:31-46, where the king separates the sheep and the goats. And to the sheep, he says, welcome to my kingdom. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick and in prison, you visited me. And they said, well, Lord, when did we do this? He says, anytime you did this to the least of one of mine, you did it to me. And then, of course, to the goats, he said, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. He says, when I was hungry, you gave me nothing to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me nothing to drink. And I said, well, when did we do this? And he said, whatever you didn't do to the least of these, you didn't do for me. So that is what Ministry of the Sheep is based on. Right now, we are taking care of, trying to take care of 10 kids in India, working with a ministry called Village Gospel Team. And we have 10 kids that are sleeping on the floor of the church. And right now, we are basically able to get enough funding to feed them. I have a vision of forming an orphanage there. The pastor, Pastor G. Job, who passed away recently, his 18-year-old son has taken over, and Pastor Job told me, he says, we're taking care of 10 kids, but there's 200 on the street, and that's in a small village in India. It's not even a big area. It's a smaller village, and I have a vision of establishing a proper orphanage there where the kids can be taught. They'll have their own bed, clothing, food provided, and also Uganda, which is where, as I was praying, about going to Uganda, God told me I would be going there. We're in contact with different orphanages there, different ministries. Been invited to Kitale, Kenya, to do crusades, and right now I'm on a 4,000-mile walkathon. I started May 30th in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota, which is just north of the Twin Cities. And today I am sitting in Waverly, Ohio, with Jeremy Calvary and his wife Miranda, who are the founders of JMC Ministries. And I have not quite a fourth of the way there, so I still have 3,000 miles to go, a little more than 4,000 or 3,000 miles to go. I'll be leaving here Sunday and headed for Washington, D.C. for the conference to support Israel. From there, going to Florida, and going to go to Miami, cross over through the Everglades to Naples, and then back up to Peoria, Illinois for the National Missionary Convention on November 19th. And Jeremy is pointing. I don't see any snakes or anything, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'll be there November 19th, and I would just invite anyone watching this to check out the website. It's ministryofthesheep.org, or if you just Google Ministry of the Sheep, you'll come up. I also do a broadcast on agapejesus.com, which is a Christian type MySpace, and I do a broadcast there every night. It's 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, where it's a video chat room. You can go in. You don't have to be a member, but I would encourage anyone to become a member. We're trying to get the site built up with Christians, true Christians, and you can set up your profile just like on MySpace. We have a video chat room for members only. You can make your own chat room to where just you and your friends, or you and your church, or you and your business can go in there and chat, a club, whatever, as long as it's clean. But I do a broadcast there. You don't have to be a member of Agape Jesus to watch the broadcast and to join in. And it's informal. I go on when I can, and people come in. I start talking about what happened throughout the day, or if they hadn't been there for a while, I'll start what happened 3 days ago and go through it. And it's very informal, and it's a good time of fellowship usually. So that's what I do. Once again, it's ministryofthesheep.org. If you wish to donate, there's a button that says please help support us. That'll take you to PayPal, and it also has the address if you wanted to send a check or money order to the ministry, made out to Ministry of the Sheep International, and the address there. So that's about it. God bless you. I hope to see you at the chat. Say once again, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, agapejesus.com. It's a walkathon chat. So, God bless you.
Okay, that was Dennis sharing his testimony, and 11 years ago today, we actually uploaded that video to Facebook. I can't believe that it fell on, the show today fell on that, because it popped up in my memories showing that we had uploaded that. So after Dennis did his walk, he wrote this book, and it was published in 2014. It's called No Mere Coincidences. I'm going to just read you the description on the back of it, and then we're going to actually, this was he put together his journal that he kept as he did his 4,000 mile walk for missions. He actually took the picture that's on the front of the cover. He actually took the picture, and I can't remember. It says in the book and stuff where the church was that he took the picture of. But so on the back of it, it says, "What happens when you follow God's instructions to live totally on faith? Amazing things, miraculous things. No mere coincidences. A journey of faith follows the ups and downs of the author as he travels 4,000 miles, relying only on the Holy Spirit leading him and others." An ordained minister and founder of Ministry of the Sheep International, Dennis Mixer is a U.S. Army veteran of Desert Storm, former police officer, and emergency medical technician. In 2007, after years of public service, God called him into ministry. Since that time, Dennis has worked at an orphanage in Honduras, become ordained, started a ministry, did a 4,000 mile journey of faith, ministered to the poor, homeless, and desolate on the streets of Atlanta, Georgia, and cared for his mother suffering Alzheimer's. All of this has been done on faith. You can follow Dennis at www.facebook.com/dennis.mixer. And his Facebook is still up, and you can go to a page and see the kind of see his legacy and see the messages people have left and about how they impacted their lives, for Christ and everything. And in the book, Dennis shares about how he got to Ohio and met me and Jeremy. And so we're going to actually read this part of the book to you, and in Dennis's own words, just sharing what it was like hanging out with us for a few days and meeting different people and attending different church services and stuff. And as Jeremy's reading, we have some pictures that go along with these events that we'll share with you. And but first, Jeremy's going to read you the preface of the book and who he has dedicated the book to. And so, Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you now.
No Mere Coincidences, A Journey of Faith by Dennis Mixer. Dennis Mixer writes, in October 2008, I returned to the United States from Honduras after 6 months of working at the Fundación Amor y Esperanza, Foundation Love and Hope, an orphanage operated by Impact Ministries International. I was praying about what direction my life should take when God led me to form Ministry of the Sheep International, a Bible-based organization to meet spiritual, physical, and emotional needs. By March 2009, I had organized the ministry the best I knew how and prayed about what I should do to get people to recognize it. As I prayed, I felt the Holy Spirit ask, "Are you willing to walk for it?" I said I would do anything. The following day, I found out about the the National Missionary Convention, which is to be held in Peoria, Illinois in mid-November, and I thought, so in November I'll walk to Peoria, Illinois. The very next day I learned about Christians United for Israel Summit, which is taking place in Washington, D.C. in July. Though I didn't have the funds to attend the summit, I felt that was to make my way there. I thought there's a lot of time between July and mid-November, and immediately remembered the Reyes family whom I met in Honduras. They lived in Naples, Florida, and had invited me to visit them when I returned to the United States. God made it clear to me that the journey was not so much about Ministry of the Sheep, but to reach out and care for others. to minister to the people God had put in my path during the journey. The journey was done on faith, relying on God for everything. I was not to ask for anything but water and a place to set my tent up. I wasn't to ask for rides, but I knew that if offered a ride, I could accept it, as it would be a chance to minister. I wanted the journey to begin on a weekend and decided on May 30th, 2009. I set my goal average of 25 miles a day. When I finished planning the journey, I would walk into Washington, D.C. the day the summit started, and Peoria, Illinois the day the convention started. Sharing about the journey with friends on Agape Jesus, now ChristCorner.com, is recommended that I do a nightly live video update. While on the journey, we prayed about it, and within a few days, God had provided a netbook computer and a wireless internet service. We were the ones who provided the wireless internet service. It was a Verizon Wi-Fi USB stick.
Yeah.
It was also recommended that I kept a journal during the journey. Following is my journal, and is about how God, as every moment of our lives, in His care. I pray that the events that I live will inspire and encourage you, the reader, to seek a closer relationship with our Father in heaven and open the eyes of Christians to the needs around them. Dennis Mixer. Dedicated to Christians around the world who face ridicule, persecution, torture, and even death on a daily basis, to live and spread the good news of Jesus Christ. Matthew 6:25. Therefore I say to you, do not be anxious for your life, what you shall eat, what you shall drink, nor for your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing?
You're supposed to start reading. So, what chapter is this in the book?
That's what I was looking at. I was
It's-
trying to find what chapter it was. It's written by days, not really chapters.
Okay. Well,
He doesn't break it down into chapters.
okay.
It's really just days.
just his journal. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
it's pretty much like a journal book.
Okay.
It'll start with like his journey begins, and then when you go through it, he journalizes by month.
Okay.
So
So
he
the
just
end of
logs
in the end of
months.
June,
Yeah, so the
the
last
beginning of July, he starts. This is where the leg of the journey begins with us
Mhm.
in Ohio, in Chillicothe, Ohio, and Southern Ohio.
Okay, so this is Tuesday, June 30th, 2009. It says, I took a couple of days of rest. In the evening, David and Julie drove me east of Cincinnati to Chillicothe, Ohio, where Jeremy Caverly picked me up. Jeremy and his wife Miranda are JMC Ministries, friends I met online. Miranda wasn't feeling well, but when I did the nightly update, I saw her online. She told me she had been having stomach problems, so we prayed over her. Jeremy made arrangements for me to spend the night on the Salvation Army church grounds. We talked about plans he had for me. Jeremy and his wife had contacts all around the Chillicothe area, and he had plans for networking for the next couple of days, so I decided to see where God took us. We got to the Salvation Army about 11:30 p.m., and I met Nate Vanderhoof, the youth director for the Salvation Army in Chillicothe. Now we go into July. So these are pictures you're going to see that we took. And this is the backpack that he had.
That weighed 80 pounds.
That weighed about 80 pounds. He had to get an extra pair of shoes and some ties and stuff as he was doing his journey. Now we go into July. July 1st, 2009. Normally, as you see, he'll be doing his Agape broadcast from Wi-Fi from like a McDonald's or a Starbucks. Wednesday, July 1st, 2009. Today started the whirlwind of activity that kept me going from morning to night. Jeremy and Miranda took me to the Christian bookstore Praises, where I met Chuck the manager and talked to him about my journey I was on. Next, we went to their neighbor's house, Tom and Bernice With, who wanted to meet me. We had a nice long visit before starting for a church to worship that evening. Jeremy began going through the phone book, and the third church he tried was the first one to answer the phone, Church Triumphant. They're having a Wednesday service, so I made plans to attend there. Following that, he took me to his friend's house, and I met Stephen. Stephen was a 58-year-old man with cerebral palsy. Thing is, he never considered a handicap. Stephen worked for the Salvation Army for several years as a year-round kettle ringer and to raise funds for the children's programs that the Salvation Army in Chillicothe offered. Stephen can tell story after story of the things that God done through his ministry. Being able to witness and collect donations to places most men wouldn't have thought. This is the picture of Church Triumphant. They were having an event where the power team showed up. So that's me and Dennis with the power team. You know, the guys that like...
And the guy right behind Jeremy that's wearing the Cleveland Brown shirt, the kind of the scrawny guy, he's the pastor of the church. So it was a really cool event. Dennis really enjoyed it.
Yep, so it says, Stephen can tell story after story. He's been able to witness and collect donations to places that most men wouldn't have thought about, let alone go to. He tells one story of a biker rally where he had been given a booth that was getting very few donations because of its location. Not one to sit around waiting. Stephen hooked Kettle onto his crutches and started walking around the bikers. Because of his persistence and dedication, he raised more than $1,000 over that weekend. He was a true inspiration to me and encouragement to keep me going and never give up. The time came to head for church. Jeremy had called about a service. He was told about a special activity for that night. You can put that image back up if you want. We arrived to find this country church had packed out and discovered the special activity was 2 members of Team Extreme, the Christian Power Team. They were Bubba and TJ. At the end of the night, they gave an altar call, and after the main group went up to the altar, one of the team members told me to ask the person next to them if they needed to be at the altar. I looked at a small group of kids in front of me. The Holy Spirit told me to look behind me. Behind me was a young man standing there alone. I looked him in the eyes, and I knew that the Spirit of God had been convicting him. I didn't ask him if he should be at the altar. I told him, "You're supposed to be up there." It was as though he was waiting to see if anyone cared about him. He slightly nodded his head, and together we slipped off of our pews and we went straight to the front. The church is very well organized for the altar call. They had their counselors ready to give each person the Bible, get their information. I was impressed. So often I see altar calls where they are done, everyone goes home and no one even knows anyone's name and they don't follow up on the commitments made. In all, there were about 50 people that went forward that night. I received permission to set up my tent beside Stephen's house that night, as the alley beside the Salvation Army had a lot of traffic. We stopped the Salvation Army first as Nate wanted to get some items for breakfast. While we were there, Jeremy pointed out 2 men sitting at a picnic table who we said were homeless, and they got kicked out of the shelter because one of them had been drinking. We went over and Jeremy started talking to him. He started sharing his testimony of being homeless at age 19 and how now, even after being homeless, God led him to go on a mission trip to South Africa. Despite his circumstance, he worked 20 hours a week with that seeking donations. It saved the $3,000 for his trip. We prayed for the men, then we went to Stephen's house, which I discovered was built on top of the old Erie Canal, which, when I explained, the street was named Canal Street, so I can now say I slept on the Erie Canal. Now we go to July 2nd, 2009. Another day in Chillicothe. Jeremy Miranda showed up and said a friend named Lacey and Miranda's grandmother, Mary Steinhauer, wanted to meet me. We first drove to Waverly, her grandmother's home, where I first met Miranda's uncle, Tim Steinhauer. They've been living on several acres of woodland where Mary's late husband, Bill, had been born. Bill passed away January 10, 2009. While we were there, we learned that a local church had a Thursday night service, which we decided to attend later in the evening. Then we headed to Lacey's house, only to discover Lacey's grandmother had been taken to the local hospital. So we headed to the hospital where I met Lacey and her brother and her grandfather. We got the opportunity to pray for them before leaving for the Gospel Lighthouse Church in Waverly, Ohio. At the church, we met Pastor Joey Sandlin, who's also the DJ for the radio station WXIC Waverly, AM 660. That's where the video that we shared was filmed. During the service, he asked me to share my testimony. Afterward, invited us to stop to the radio station the next day. So now we got even more. Friday, July 3rd, 2009. At the radio station, which focused on Southern gospel music, Joey Sandlin talked on air about ministry of the sheep and what we're doing for the Lord. Miranda's friend Carmen Cooper called as we were heading back to Chillicothe, and we went to her house so I could meet her husband Gary, their children Gabby and Kayla. Carmen became a Christian a few months earlier and cited Jeremy and Miranda as the reason why they turned their life over to the Lord. Later we had dinner, and Miranda's mom, Becky Fannin, who worked in a shelter for women who were homeless due to domestic violence. After dinner, we went back to Stevens, and I did my live broadcast online. Jeremy opened up JMC Ministries live broadcast, and I was able to give my testimony and take questions from the chat room. July 4th, 2009. After we stayed at Stevens all day, we had a cookout. That afternoon, I met Stevens' wife, Leona, and at 4:30, we left to attend a Saturday night service at Beulah Chapel with Randy Reinhardt. When we arrived, I met Miranda's cousins, a singing duet, the Carter sisters, Bev and Vel. At that moment, they were preparing for the music for the service. Vel on piano and Bev on guitar. During the service, Jeremy and Miranda sang and shared their testimony, and I shared my story. Later, we had snaps at the fellowship with Randy and his wife, Chris Reinhardt. Others were coming up to greet me, and many donated small amounts to help me on my way. After refreshments, several from the service went to Randy's house to watch fireworks. Monday, July 6, 2009. Jeremy and Miranda drove me to Athens, Ohio Sunday night, and I got up to set up my field to sleep. During the night there was a heavy fog, and the tent was saturated by water. By the time I carried my backpack and the tent out of the field to the parking lot, my pants were soaked from the dew and the tall grass. I was ready to once again get on the road, and I noticed there was a trail which led straight to the road that I would need to exit Athens on, so I followed it, and it led to Assembly of God Church. I discovered there was a prayer service going on, and I decided to join. When it was over, I got a bite to eat before leaving Athens. It was after 2 p.m., and I had only 8 miles to cover to be in Shade, Ohio, where I planned to be that night. That's not what God had planned for me, though. I was about 3 miles outside Athens when a pickup pulled over and offered me a ride. I don't remember the man's name, but God told me who he is. He's from West Virginia. The first thing he told me, he normally doesn't pick people up on the road, but he saw me, and he felt he was supposed to pick me up. I asked where I was headed, and I told him. He said if it mattered if he got him closer to West Virginia. It turns out that he had delivered something to a woman in Athens a few days earlier. When he did, he felt that he was supposed to go and witness to her about Jesus, but he didn't then. But when he got back to West Virginia, he forgot to have her sign the delivery paperwork completely. He told his employer that he would do it on his own time in his own vehicle on his own way home when he came across me. He dropped me off at a store called Twin Oaks in a place known as 5 Points. I went in to get something to eat, pulled up my network computer, upload photos from my camera. There were a couple of ladies and men there eating, and as they finished, one of them asked how I liked my computer. She introduced herself and gave me a card. Her name was Sheila Arnold. She was a gospel singer-songwriter whom I found out was the worship leader at her church. As we talked, I told her about the ministry and my journey. She said I needed to meet her pastor. She also told me there was a prayer meeting going on in our church that evening. I found out that church was about 8 miles up the road in a town called Coolville. I figured I'd head out, and if God wanted me to be at the prayer meeting, he would provide a ride. I didn't get a ride in time for the start of the prayer meeting, but I did get a ride from one of the store employees who'd gotten off work, and I was headed home. I got to Faith Harvest Church about 8:30, went in. They were still in the meeting, but as soon as the pastor came out, he greeted me, Pastor Beasley, and I sat for over an hour chatting about the ministry and doing what God tells me to do. So every day there's something like this happening. Every day in this book.
Amazing. So he finished his 4,000 mile walk for missions, and then after that he went back to Minnesota, and he helped take care of his mother who was had Alzheimer's, and he was preparing to, he's just kind of trying to figure out where he was supposed to go next. And his mother suddenly passed away from Alzheimer's, and he ended up then getting another, Lord calling him again to go on a journey. And this time he did a 5,300 mile bike ride. And this went on from 2014 to 2015. He started in Minnesota and he ended in Colorado. So we're going to show you, this is, he posted this August 12th, 2014. It says, getting anxious to start my new season, a 5,300 mile bicycle ministry trip. Below is a proposed route. Mounds View, Minnesota to YWAM, which YWAM stands for Youth with a Mission School in Colorado Springs via the Florida Keys. If you would like to host me for a night or have me speak to your group or at your church, let me know. And he posted that on August 12th, 2014. And then he shared a map of the route he was going to take. So, as you can see up here, it says Mounds View, Minnesota. Then he was going to go all the way down here, go down around the Florida, down around Florida, back around, along the Gulf Coast, into Texas, and then up almost through the middle of Texas and towards Colorado Springs, where he ended his journey. This is a photo of his bike and his trailer, and I think he this was actually harder on him than the walking mission trip he did, because he had so many problems with his bike and the trailer and the tires, and he was constantly having to stop and do repairs, or the bike had to go into a shop and have repairs done. It seemed to me that it was way harder on him, and physically, and it was just so demanding. But he did it. And God protected him, and God blessed him the whole way. He was in the process of writing. He was in the process before he passed away of writing about that mission trip journey he did. But sadly, he didn't get to write that. And so from 2014 2015, over a period of months, he did the 5,300 mile bike ride. Then he went to Montana to Bible college to prepare. So September 2015, he made this post on his Facebook page, said started a new job at the School of Biblical Studies in Kalispell, Montana. And that was Bible college to do mission work with YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And through that, he traveled. He did some short-term mission work in Mexico during that time he was doing the biblical studies. And then when he got out, and then I'll share this picture too. So in 2013, he shared this was his Bible. This is Dennis's Bible, and he wrote, "We must read the Word, study the Word, memorize the Word, discuss the Word, meditate on the Word, and love the Word. But if we don't live by the Word, the rest is pointless." And he was such a humble man. He really was. He was so humble, and he just loved. He just had a heart to just give love to people. And so he we don't have a lot of photos of him once he started doing his work down in Mexico and stuff, because he took pictures, but they weren't of him. He wasn't a selfie taker, I'll tell you that. But so after he left the YWAM, the Bible college, and he went to Mexico, and eventually he got an apartment and got connected with people that were missionaries with YWAM in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, Mexico. And he started doing mission work down there. And he'd been down there for about 3 years now?
Yes.
Yeah, about 3 years. And he just started just going at it, doing street ministry, going out in the streets, just trying to build relationships with people and reaching out to the homeless and the drug addicts. There was a church in the park. He would. This was a picture he shared on just this year on May 5th. It says, "Thanks to the extra support from family and friends, the park feeding ministry is still going strong and growing during these difficult times." He's referencing the pandemic we're under. But they would do this. once a week. But they would go out and feed almost every day. They would go out and do the feed the homeless and feed the people in need almost every day. During this time, sadly, Dennis was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and he was also diagnosed with diabetes. And he was having a lot of health problems over the past just 2 years before he passed away. This photo we're going to share now with you. This is actually the last photo taken of Dennis. This was taken in December 2019. He had gone back to Minnesota, taking a break. He had every so often you have to go back and you have to renew your visa and to be in another country. So he went back to the United States for a break, and he went and visited his family for Christmas. And then he, after Christmas, he went back to Mexico. And then this photo was the actual very last photo ever posted of him on Facebook that we could find. This is Dennis working in the kitchen in his apartment in Mexico, making food to feed the homeless and the people on the streets that are in need. And that was, I believe, in May. But in January, on January 18th of this year, I received this message from Dennis, and this was the last message I ever received from him before he passed away. Now, normally Jeremy and I don't, talk about, how we give our tithe and offering, and we don't normally share this, but we felt this was important to share. But Dennis wrote me on January 18th this message, and the day he wrote this, I was actually at my grandparents' house, and my grandfather was dying of Alzheimer's. So we're literally sitting there, knowing it's just a matter of hours or days, that my grandfather's going to pass. And I get this message, and it really encouraged me. And it says, "Hi, Miranda and Jeremy. Thank you so much for your donation. It will definitely help with the ministry. There are always needs, especially this time of year with the cold and flu season. So far this month, over and above the cost of maintaining Haven House," that's what he called his apartment, maintaining Haven House and feeding the homeless, I purchased medicine for 4 people and blankets for 3, not to mention my own medication for rheumatoid arthritis. I wish I could say that I have been keeping up with JMC Ministries, but unfortunately with 4 men in the house in various stages of rehabilitation, church in the park, and making 45 meals a night, leaves me fairly exhausted. I miss the days when my biggest worry was finding a place to set my tent up at night. Again, thank you so much. Please keep me in your prayers as I keep you in mind. And when I look back and I read this, when he says, "I miss the days," and he was longing for those days where he was just setting his tent up somewhere and enjoying God's creation on his walk. And I thought, oh, that rest has come to him now. And so then on May 31st of this year, Dennis made this post. It says, "On this day in 2009, I began my first journey of faith, a 4,000-mile walking journey, relying solely on God for 5.5 months, sitting in the hospital room. When he says sitting in the hospital room, this was when he was in the hospital with the severe pneumonia. They said at the time, and he was he had been on a ventilator and everything. Sitting in this hospital, many of my thoughts have been about that journey, the faithfulness of God, the incredible people I met, and the spiritual growth I went through. If you're interested in the whole story, my book, No Coincidences, A Journey of Faith, is available through Amazon in paperback. He made that post on May 31st. Just a couple, just like 3 weeks before he passed away. And he was in the hospital then. And then on June 3rd, he wrote from the hospital, he said, excited at the prospect of going home today. 3 weeks in a Mexican hospital is enough to write a book about. And then he went home and he made a post that he had, they sent him home, but he was going to have to be on oxygen and stuff. And so on June 7th, he went home and he made this post talking about, what was going on and everything. As you have probably read, I have left the hospital after 3.5 weeks. I continue recovery at home. My bedroom is basically an isolation room. Only my caregivers allowed in. I have a doctor coming tomorrow to evaluate me and prescribing medicine for my diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis. As the hospital doctor, only prescribed medication for the pneumonia. A blessing. When I was being discharged, my friend Perla was told that my hospital bill was, she told me that, she told me what my hospital bill was. She told the social worker that what I did, feeding the homeless and working with the addicts. Long story short, hospital bill was forgiven. And then he wrote, meet my caregivers, Jose and Perla, a couple who, because homeless, because of the lockdown, and Jose, who came to Haven House for help with the recovery of his addiction. They not only took on the job of family while I was in the hospital, they are caring for me at home, and they restarted the park ministry last week. Please continue to pray for me in my recovery, as well as my caregivers. Please also pray for Danny, Marcos, and Omar, who went back to the drugs and are back homeless on the streets while I was hospitalized. So, that was on June 7th. And just 7 days later, he passed away. We saw a message on his Facebook page saying that, they had to call an ambulance, rushed him back to the hospital, and he had passed away. And when we found out, Jeremy was at work, and I was here at the house by myself, and Jeremy calls me, and I answered, and he says, are you sitting? He says, what are you doing? And I said, I was just doing something. He says, I need you to go sit down. And I said, why? He says, I need you to go sit down now. And I was like, and I knew somebody had died. And I sat down, and he said, Dennis is gone. He passed away today. And my heart just broke. My heart just broke. And, so his family started talking to us. We've been in contact with his sister Lois and some of the people down there in Mexico that was working with him. And Jeremy got a message from one of the guys down in Mexico, and he said, I want to share this with you. He said this was the song that Dennis was listening to while he was sick. This was what he was listening to all the time. This was his favorite song. And it was the song, Great Are You, Lord. The praise and worship song, Great Are You, Lord. And so, if I can get through this. And so Jeremy and I recorded that song for Dennis. And then I recorded the song Amazing Grace, My Chains Are Gone for Dennis. And so we're going to play those two songs for you right now. And just pray for Dennis's family as they grieve him.
There is a GoFundMe link that we posted on the Facebook Live, and it's posted on the YouTube Live, and you'll be able to donate there.
They are needing help with the funeral expenses. So if God leads you to donate, please do, because his family does need help with that, because he is still in Mexico. They're trying to get him back to the States so then they can give him a proper burial and everything. But without further ado, we're going to play you these two songs. This is for you, Dennis, and we just pray that heaven allows you to hear these beautiful songs.
You give life, you are love, you bring light into the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise, it's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, you only.
must soon dissolve like snow. The sun forbear to shine, but God who called me here below will be forever mine, will be forever mine. You are forever mine. I want to share with you three images, and this one was a post made just 4 days after Dennis passed away by a person named Pasquale Marino. Is it Yasso? Would be Yasso? Okay. Says, in memory of a great man and friend who was called into the presence of the Lord. My dear friend Dennis, the church in the park looks so sad without you. We will always miss you. And when Dennis was doing his 4,000-mile walk back in 2009, when we went to the Praises bookstore, he got this shirt, and I think if Dennis would tell us anything, with everything going on in America right now, with the restrictions or the attacking everything that is America and everything that is freedom of religion, he would tell us this. Just what the shirt says: share the gospel while it is still legal. He would tell us that today. I truly believe that. And then, lastly, before we end, we're just going to end with this image. Nothing, no fancy. This picture of Dennis blowing a shofar was taken during his 5,300-mile bike ride journey. And the quote here, this was a quote that he shared every year on January 1st, the beginning of every year. He shared this post over and over again. And because he thought it was so important to share this at the beginning of every year, I want to share this with you, because I think this is really what one of the things Dennis would say to us if he was here. God sees things differently than man does. The world sees beautiful faces or ugly faces, strong bodies and weak bodies. The world sees success and failure based on financial and material things. God sees things of the heart. He sees beauty and love and compassion. He sees strength and the willingness to stand for justice and righteousness, even when it goes against public opinion. God sees success in fighting the good fight and finishing the race. And Dennis finished his race. And he stayed faithful. And, when somebody dies who's a Christian, they're not in our past, they're in our future. Once they go on to heaven, they're in our future. And we can't wait. I can't wait for the day that I get to go to heaven. And I see Dennis. And I'm sure he's up there celebrating with both my grandfathers, and all my family, and all the friends he's made that went on before him. And one day we'll be back together again, and we'll be praising the Lord. So, this has been our JMC Life for the month of July. And we hope you've enjoyed learning about our friend Dennis, and in the life he lived, and the love he gave to the world in the name of Jesus Christ. And we will see you next month. God bless you. And we will see you soon.